First of all, I'm so sorry because I'm not there with you due to COVID restrictions, so I hope next time. So, as you say, I'm going to talk about new breeding techniques for improving cannabis crops. And my presentation is divided into different sections. First of all, I'm going to talk a bit about who we are, then what breeding means, cannabis sativa, our plant, of course, stress to be improved, classical breeding techniques versus new breeding techniques, talking about in vitro culture, double haploids, the omics era, including GMO organisms and CRISPR-Cas9, and the conclusions. So let me start. Who we are? Midco Bioscience is a licensed medical cannabis company based in Malaga, Spain, focused on cultivation under GACP and GMP standards to serve European markets with medical-grade cannabis solutions using innovative micropropagation technology and organic growth supplements. Our purpose is to improve daily wellness of patients by providing pharmaceutical-grade cannabis solutions, making natural healthcare accessible to anyone and any lifestyle. And our mission is to supply pharmaceutical partners with high-quality virus-free medical cannabis produced with innovative tissue culture techniques and only with organic cultivation supplements. The founder team is Antonio Sancho, founder and CEO of the company, José Luis Valencia, co-founder and infrastructure accountable, and me, co-founder and cultivation accountable. So what breeding means? Plant breeding is the science of changing the traits of plants in order to produce desired characteristics. Each new strain has the potential to bring something new to the growing world which has never been seen before. But please, many things to consider. Breeding is a long-time process. Genetic diversity is essential. Knowledge of the varieties to be used in the breeding program, as well as a standardized cultivation method to avoid genotype by environment interactions, statistics, genetics, plant pathology, entomology, and other related science are needed to start a breeding program. So as you see here, we need genetic diversity and thanks to breeding, and after testing, we are obtaining new varieties with novel traits that are the desirable traits. Why cannabis sativa? You know why, because all of you are here exactly for the same reason, no? It's one of the most important crops in nature. It's what they use to produce paper, textiles, building materials, food, and medicine. Belongs to the family Cannabaceae and contains a class of terpene phenolic compounds known as cannabinoids mainly accumulated on pedunculated trichomes more abundant in the bracts of the female flowers. This is the main reason why we want always to keep our mother plants and make clones of our mother plants, forgetting the males. But remember that we need the males and the pollen to make crosses to obtain a new variety. One division between the cannabis sativa species are the subspecies sativa and indica. Cannabis sativa indica is a soft plant with broad leaves, shorter flowering cycles, suitable for colder climates with a shorter season. However, Cannabis sativa sativa is a tall plant with narrow leaves, longer flowering times, recommended for warm climates with a long season. Another division is in base of the chemotype. If we have high THC, we are going to have the chemotype 1, high CBD chemotype 3, and a ratio between THC and CBD, normally ratio 1:1, is the chemotype 2. Let me explain what it was. The first cannabinoid that you obtain in the plant is the CBGA. Remember that in the plant, all the cannabinoids are in the acidic form. If you have THC synthase, you are going to obtain THC, so marijuana. If you have CBD synthase, you are going to obtain CBD, so hemp. All start with fatty acids that are converted into olivetholic acid and the olivetholic acid into CBD. So if you have 2 copies of the THC synthase and homozygous, you are going to have the chemotype 1. If you have 2 copies and homozygous of CBD synthase, you are going to have the chemotype 3. And if you have 1 copy of each, you are going to have ratio 1:1 chemotype 2. So the plant breeder usually has in mind an ideal plant that combines a maximum number of desirable characteristics. These characteristics may include resistance to diseases and insects, tolerance to heat, soil salinity, frost, flowering time, plant architecture, many others, and the most important, of course, higher yield, higher secondary metabolized productivity, novel cannabinoid profile for medical uses, and new terpene profiles. But normally the breeder want to improve many traits in the same variety, not only trait by trait. So plant breeding is both the science and art of developing elite crop cultivars by creating and resembling desirable inherited traits for human benefit. Which are the common cannabis breeding steps that all of you sure that know? Select male and female parents, separate male from the female, collect pollen from the males, pollinate the females, obtain the seeds, sow the seeds, keep records, discard the bad ones, make the first clonal trial, select the best one, and second and following multi-environmental clonal trials. Let me please put attention here, multi-environmental clonal trials. Why? Because normally when you see a plant that you say, wow, this is my perfect plant, it's the phenotype. Not always are the genes involved. Sometimes it's the environment where this plant is growing. So you need to know if there are genotype by environment interactions or not. Then you need to stabilize your strain. How? Normally with backcrossing. Backcrossing is a powerful technique to help breeders stabilize strains. Backcrossing is the action of taking a plant and cross it with one of its parents. The idea is to create offspring which are genetically similar to the desired parent. Each offspring from a backcross is more likely to carry two versions of the desired parent genes. I can explain better with this figure where we have a small green plant and a tall pink plant with different kinds of genes. If you cross them, you are going to obtain the first generation, F1, that all looks like similar. But be careful, looks like, because the genes are different. So then, if you cross between them, you are going to obtain all this variability. If you want to fix the, for example, green tall one, you need to choose this and backcross their parents several generations to be sure that you are fixing these traits. How to do classical breeding programs? Normally are divided into mass selection, progeny selection, clonal selection, and pure line selection. But again, to obtain a new variety, you need at least between 6 and 10 years. The difference is how everything begins. In mass selection, open pollinated seeds from the selected plants harvested and bulked. In progeny selection, also open pollinated seeds from each plant are harvested separately. In clonal selection, is a mixture of clones of several superior plants selected, and pure line selection, several plants selected based on superior phenotype. You sow the plants, see what is happening, discard the bad ones, select the best ones, make another cross, and during following years, you need to make gene trial, multi-location gene trials, and each year make the corresponding selections. This is only to show you that for mass selection, you need 6 years to obtain seeds that could be considered for commercial purposes as variety. And in the pure line selection, you need at least 7 years. This is a very crazy figure that only want to explain that we start with land races, normally pure lines, which have 2 copies of the same gene, cross between them to obtain hybrids. You can also create polyhybrids crossing 2 hybrids, and then you need to stabilize, making crosses during many generations. Or you can use the crossbreeding population hybrids, so you are crossing each hybrid with its parent on each generation to try to obtain an homozygous, a plant that has 2 copies exactly of the gene that you want to improve. So conventional plant breeding involves directed process of parent plants with desirable characteristics, population evaluation, selection, and fixing desired traits. Conventional breeding methods are time-consuming, costly, and laborious. The composition and content of cannabis secondary metabolites, in particular cannabinoids and terpenes, is also related to various factors such as phenotype, age of plant, sex, etc. The new breeding techniques for most crops with this economic importance, remember that our plant could give you many products depending on each plant, including the roots. So biotechnological tools are well developed and have been implemented into breeding programs for decades. However, due to the long history of the prohibition of recreational drug-type cannabis, along with the strict regulation and lower market value of hemp, these tools are rudimentary and many common techniques used in other crops have yet to be applied to cannabis. In vitro tissue culture techniques are the basis of micropropagation and breeding in cannabis, and coupled with genetic engineering techniques, offer opportunities for producing new genotypes and manipulating secondary metabolite production. Let me explain you briefly how it works in vitro culture. An plant is excised from the mother plant under sterile conditions. This plant is placed on growth medium containing an energy source and hormones. This plant rapidly grows new tissue. This can be repeated several times. Individual shoots are moved to new growth medium, which allows the roots to harden. Plants are vegetated in vitro, reducing cost and protecting plants from the environment, and plants are transferred to solid medium for conventional growth in greenhouse. Which are the benefits of the micropropagation? You are going to obtain higher cannabinoid yields, lower production cost, virus-free plants, independent of the environment, harvest in short duration, and also is the best method to maintain and safeguard plant stock. Only as a sample, if we compare classical breeding with tissue culture breeding, we start in the first step choosing the best plant based on phenotype. This is the same plant, but then the problem starts because you need to make clones and you need a very big surface to maintain those clones compared with only few tubes. But then it's more complicated because you need to make multiple location trials. Here is an example between an indoors and outdoors trials. Imagine the surface and the number of plants, and can have all those number of plants here making different composition of the medium to make the similarity with the multiple location trials, and only you need a cell in one room. And after that, you make the selection of your best candidates. So, in vitro culture, shortening the breeding cycles. Why? Because the factors to improve in breeding programs, you can do it also on in vitro culture. For example, nutritional requirements. Here, talk about basal medium. We can add or eliminate everything that we want of the basal medium. We can, for example, add salts and know if our variety is going to be salinity tolerant or not. We can know if they need more or less nitrogen, phosphorus, or potassium, anything, only changing very few liters of liquid and not very big deposits with nutrients controlling everything. Also, of course, this plant. You know that the age of the mother plant and also the health of the mother plant is the responsible of the success of the rooting of your clones and also the health of the future crop. So you can study that, the plant health, the age, the species, the culture, into in vitro culture. Of course, environment. You can control completely humidity, temperature, light, and know what is happening, and if your variety is tolerant or not to different kind of spectrum, intensity, if one spectrum is better for vegetative phase or flowering phase, etc. And plant growth regulators, because the correct balance of the different kind of hormones is extremely important to a correct plant development, as well as for secondary metabolites accumulation. Only to compare, if we compare traditional manual cloning with our micro-tissue culture cloning, the space to produce 1,000 cuttings in square meters are 3 to 5, and in vitro cloning only 0.36 square meters. The clones processed per person per day in traditional manual cloning could be between 200 to 100 and half, but you can achieve 1,000 and half and 2,000 in tissue culture cloning. Another important thing, cleanliness. You can have chances of contamination in traditional cloning. Whatever, with tissue culture, you have disease, pest, and virus-free certified plants. The same for the vigor. Chances of reduced vigor from stresses or infected mother plants. However, you are improving vigor from meristematic reviving on in tissue culture. Also, another new breeding technology that needs the in vitro culture to achieve the success is the double haploids. How is that? We have two pure lines, two parents that have two exactly copies of the genes. And we want one that our new variety have these characteristics, dark blue, and these characteristics, light blue. Okay, we cross them and we obtain all the progeny with all characteristics. But then if you want to stabilize that, because remember that here you have two copies of the gene, but then the pollen or the flowers are going to be only half. So if you want to stabilize that, you need to make crosses until 10 years, or 8 years more or less, to try that both genes has the same, that are homozygous. But using double haploids, you obtain the same in only one generation. Imagine that you decide that you are going to stop this process in the 7th year by classical breeding, and you have this plant. If you are lucky and your pollen or your flower has this copy, everything is perfect. But it has this copy, you are losing part of one trait that is interesting for you. How we can do that? As I told you before, the only cells of one organism that have the half of the genome are the sexual cells, pollen or ovules. So if I keep pollen or ovules, introduce them on in vitro culture, and grow the plant, I'm going to have a plant that is haploid, only one with one copy. Using the colchicine treatment that is a mitotic factor, this haploid plant is going to be converted into a double haploid, an homozygous plant. Here, if we compare, we started with the first generation, the F1, and we wait that the plants arrive to the flowering period. So we make the pollination and wait 28 to 42 days for seed development. We harvest the seeds, and depends on the variety, we need to wait from 0 to 30 days of vernalization. So these new plants wait 56 to 64 days for plant development until arrive to the flowering process and make the pollination again in the F2. We need to wait until F8, remember. What happens with double haploid breeding? The initial step is the same. When flowering starts, we isolate the pollen or the ovules and introduce them in an induction medium during 15 days. After that, we pass them to the regeneration medium, and after 28 days of plant development, we are going to obtain the double haploid plants. 43 days in only one generation, comparing with 84 to 136 days generation and 8 generations. I think that it was clear. So another techniques that are the omics sera. What is the omics sera? The omics sera are the biotechnological tools that study all the levels of an organism. So if you are going to study the genome, you have the genomics. If you study directly the genes, you have the epigenomics, transcripts or RNA transcriptomics, proteins, proteomics, and metabolomics. And all this omics sera conforms the phenomics. That is, what are you seen in your plant, the phenotype. How to do that? I could talk about this during 3 weeks or 1 month of Congress only for me, so it's not the key of this talk. So to study the genome, you can study the genome sequence with gene annotation, molecular markers, transcriptomes with full-length cDNA, nuclease, proteome, the interaction subcellular localization, the modificome profile, metabolite profile, very important in our plant, in all medicinal plants, phenome, mutant lives, and natural variation. But remember that those are very high amount of data that you need to know very well bioinformatic tools to understand all those data. Nowadays, there is another omics, that is enviromics. There is the phenotypic variation observed across diverse environments and is a product of genetic and environmental variation. Thus, enviromics acts as a central bottleneck for the application of modern genomics-assisted prediction tools, especially for use across multiple environments. One of the most actual techniques are the CRISPR-Cas9, that is not more than genome editing or gene editing. And what is CRISPR-Cas9? CRISPR-Cas9 is not more than a protein, Cas9, that is an endonuclease, that the only function is cut the DNA. And the CRISPR system is one guide RNA with a complementary sequence of the matching genomic sequence that we want to cut. So this RNA reacts, recognizes the DNA that we want to cut, and the nuclease cut this part. Why this is important? Because you can delete genes. And you say, what is important? Because, for example, imagine that you want to obtain varieties only with CBD, and you want to have the possibility to make a hemp commercial market very important, and you are always with the problem that sometimes your varieties have more THC than 0.2 or 0.3%. If you cut the THC synthase, you are not going to have any more THC. But you can also insert new copies of the genes. So if you insert, for example, many copies of CBG synthase, you are going to have varieties with higher CBG than the normal varieties. You can achieve 40–50% of CBG, for example. Here I have a brief video that is very, very visual, only a couple of minutes, to explain better this technique.
Every cell in our body contains a copy of our genome, over 20,000 genes, 3 billion letters of DNA. DNA consists of 2 strands twisted into a double helix and held together by a simple pairing rule. A pairs with T and G pairs with C. Our genes shape who we are as individuals and as a species. Genes also have profound effects on health, and thanks to advances in DNA sequencing, researchers have identified thousands of genes that affect our risk of disease. To understand how genes work, researchers need ways to control them. Changing genes in living cells is not easy, but recently a new method has been developed that promises to dramatically improve our ability to edit the DNA of any species, including humans. The CRISPR method is based on a natural system used by bacteria to protect themselves from infection by viruses. When the bacterium detects the presence of virus DNA, it produces 2 types of short RNA, one of which contains a sequence that matches that of the invading virus. These 2 RNAs form a complex with a protein called Cas9. Cas9 is a nuclease, a type of enzyme that can cut DNA. When the matching sequence, known as a guide RNA, finds its target within the viral genome, the Cas9 cuts the target DNA, disabling the virus. Over the past few years, researchers studying the system realized that it could be engineered to cut not just viral DNA, but any DNA sequence at a precisely chosen location by changing the guide RNA to match the target. And this can be done not just in a test tube, but also within the nucleus of a living cell. Once inside the nucleus, the resulting complex will lock onto a short sequence known as the PAN. The Cas9 will unzip the DNA and match it to its target RNA. If the match is complete, the Cas9 will use two tiny molecular scissors to cut the DNA. When this happens, the cell tries to repair the cut, but the repair process is error-prone, leading to mutations that can disable the gene, allowing researchers to understand its function. These mutations are random, but sometimes researchers need to be more precise, for example, by replacing the mutant gene with a healthy copy. This can be done by adding another piece of DNA that carries the desired sequence. Once the CRISPR system has made a cut, this DNA template can pair up with the cut ends, recombining and replacing the original sequence with the new version. All this can be done in cultured cells, including stem cells that can give rise to many different cell types. It can also be done in a fertilized egg, allowing the creation of transgenic animals with targeted mutations. And unlike previous methods, CRISPR can be used to target many genes at once, a big advantage for studying complex human diseases that are caused not by a single mutation, but by many genes acting together.
Okay, so sorry. Sorry. So I don't know how to escape now. So as you see, this technique allows you to also affect many genes at the same time. So you can obtain those traits that we talked before in the classical breeding programs, that all the breeders want to improve more than one trait at the same time, using this genome editing. But something is very important to know. Cannabis, as all multicellular organisms, has an enormous number of cells. CRISPR-Cas9 acts directly on the genome of one isolated cell. You cannot use this technique in all the cells of the organism. Isoculture is again the powerful tool to help the success of CRISPR-Cas9. Protoplasts, embryos, micro or megaspores are the ideal target for CRISPR-Cas9, and a successful regeneration method from a single cell into a complete organism is required. So you have your plant, you need to obtain one cell of the plant, transfect with the CRISPR-Cas9, obtain one cell with the genome edited protoplast. In this case, it's a protoplast that is the same as one cell, and reprogram. And by regeneration, you obtain your new plant, your new variety, and of course, you need to see in field trials if you have success or not with the CRISPR-Cas, and if you are improving the trait that you want to improve. Finally, but not less important, I want to say very clearly that all the crops are genetically modified. Not GMOs as we understand GMOs, but really they are GMOs, also traditional breeding. Why? Because you cross plants and select of strains. The side genes are inserted with other genetic material. In mutagenesis, you can expose your seeds to chemicals or radiation and wait that if there are success with random change that could give you a desirable trait. With RNA interference, you switch off selected genes with RNA transgenic, that is what we know as GMO organisms, insert selected genes using recombinant DNA method. This is the only method that is introducing foreign genes into the genome from other species, okay? And when gene editing is only a schizo, that you are cutting some parts of the genome and sometimes inserting genes of the same species. So you are not introducing nothing from other species. Traditional breeding and mutagenesis, no safety testing required and are unregulated. For the other three, safety testing is required, and RNA interference and transgenics are highly regulated, whereas gene editing is still now in the discussion if it's a GMO or not, and the regulation depends on the country, okay? So as conclusions, classical breeding programs are long-time procedures, costly and time-consuming, and the new breeding techniques allow to short time needed for breeding new cultivars, to save money, to understand better the selected phenotypes, to avoid genotype by environment interactions, and to improve quality crops. In MIPCO, we are open to collaborate with GMP flower supply, stable long-term medical cannabis supply. You can increase your production capacity by outsourcing your GMP flower supply with MIPCO. Tissue culture services, tissue culture protocol transfer brings your staff to our facilities and gain all the knowledge to establish your own tissue culture lab, or outsource your micropropagations, transfer your genetics, and we will do all the propagation for you. Just focus on the valuable cultivation, and also genetics preservation. Protect your IP from any pest, pathogen, or disease that can wipe out entire model rooms or greenhouses. Also, joint breeding program, partner with us and develop new strains using innovative tissue culture techniques and in vitro assisted breeding. We are open to establish a long-term partnership to develop an in-house breeding program, reduce your breeding investment, achieve premium cultivars, and short breeding cycles. Here are the contact of Antonio Aguacio and my own contact. So feel free to contact us and keep in touch.